Recently, I tried getting on a phone call with this really interesting dude I met on Instagram. He's a photographer, just like some of us who are listening on the podcast, and he also happens to be a lecturer or facilitator or trainer or whatever it is that you call them on Skillshare. Now, since I've noticed that name Skillshare crop up a lot, from watching YouTube videos and stuff, I figured I'd reach out to this dude, find out some more about the Skillshare opportunity, how he got on the platform, and what one needs to do to make that happen. Especially for me, coming from the sales angle, because there are loads of photographers out there who talk about lighting, framing, composition, the technical aspect, and there are very few people that are talking about the business aspect. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I believe that is the chief gospel that we need to spread, because the distinguishing factor is not necessarily the technical aspect and the sense of style, but also how we sell ourselves, how we differentiate, and how we position ourselves in person and online. So that's pretty much the gospel that I'm all about, and I'm looking for every single avenue to help promote. So I noticed a couple of things. I asked this guy for his phone number so I can just call and we can have a quick conversation. And then immediately he deflected to the whole meeting thing. And I noticed that there are a couple of people who do that. I don't know if this happens to be a creative thing. That if you reach out to a photographer or a videographer, like that's just, I don't know. Creatives seem to be afraid of the phone, and I don't know why. And so I guess today's episode is a rant and also a semi-exposition on why the phone call is important and how to go about scheduling meetings. So, yes, I tried to reach out over the phone, and the fellow deflects and moves to the meeting, and then he says, this is my email address, why don't you schedule a meeting? This whole thing about sending you an online link, and then you go into someone's calendar and you pick a spot that is available for you, and that seems to be the craze right now in the business space. We have people in the West, North America, Western Europe, and that's how they are trying to set up meetings, and by osmosis, that practice seems to be coming down here to Nigeria. Okay, so I think I've laid a lot of things on the table, so let me try and untangle them one by one. Now, one thing that we ought to understand, especially we creatives, is that our time is really important. Now, if you're a wedding photographer or a videographer, you have spent the last weekend getting close to 20 gig of footage, and you need time to sort that out and to edit and let's see what else, and to design. Now, because of all that work that needs to be done, your time is really important, and so you shouldn't take a meeting unless you have to. So it actually is in your best interest, if you're a videographer or photographer, or maybe even a wedding planner, because you spent the last 18 hours on your feet planning the wedding. I mean, you need time to sit down, kick back, relax with your husband, your kids, your wife, whatever, or do some brain work about how to market and sell your services. So you actually need that downtime, and you need time to do all the stuff. So if someone says, can I hop on the phone, it actually is in your best interest, because the worst case scenario is that phone call is going to take 10, maybe 15 minutes. If it's a meeting, you're going to spend 20 to 30 minutes driving to where the venue is. If you live in Abuja, if you live in Lagos, driving time is going to be a whole lot more. But bottom line is, if you're going to have to drive out 15 minutes, then actually you're going to spend 30 minutes in traffic, and the meeting is going to last 1 hour. And so what could have easily have been a 15-minute conversation is going to be a 1 hour and 30-minute engagement, taking out that amount of time. And that is assuming that you live in Abuja or you live in Makurdi, where traffic is not really a problem. Or let's say you live in Kano. Now, if you live in Lagos, you live in Port Harcourt, or you live in any of those bustling cities in the east, you realize that the time commitment is a whole lot more. So your time is important, and that is the reason why you should hop on the phone as much as you often can, because the meeting is going to take a lot more time. So your time is important. Another important thing that you can do over the phone that you can't do in a meeting is to qualify the opportunity in the first place. And for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, you remember that qualifying is all about figuring out, who am I talking to, what's the opportunity on the table, can I get some value out of this, can I put some value to the situation, and can we indeed reach terms? Does this look like there's a deal here that is worth pursuing? If you try and push the person for the meeting, the person is already there, and you have already committed, like I've shown right now, close to 1 hour, 30 minutes of your time, and it might just be crap. The person might have absolutely nothing to say. So from this facilitator's point of view, we could have fixed up that meeting and he could have taken 2 hours of his day out only for me to go there and start spewing rubbish. Now, it might not be rubbish. It just might be that all the things that I'm talking about are not relevant to him or interesting to him, and he would have ended up spending 2 hours of his day. But if he picked the phone call and tried to qualify me over the phone, who is this chap? What's he talking about? What does he want us to discuss? You're able to sort it out quickly whether this meeting is even worth having in the first place. So your time is important. Pick up the phone, qualify the opportunity, and decide if this person is worth having a meeting in the first place or not before you send the link. In a 5-minute conversation, he could have easily found out that all the stuff I'm spewing is BS or is not relevant to him, and then he would say, Mr. Ayede, nice chatting with you, but I really don't think there's a point in having a meeting because we don't meet on 1, 2, and 3, and because of that, we're probably not going to be able to make any progress. But thank you very much for reaching out anyway. If anything comes up in the future, I'll get back to you. You see, that can be handled very quickly in a 5-10 minute conversation rather than wasting 2 hours going to a meeting that turns out not to be relevant to you. So, your time is important. So, dear creatives and wedding industry professionals, please pick up the phone when you can. It actually is in your best interest because your time is important. Now, the next thing is this fad that is going around with this whole calendar thing. Somebody wants to get a meeting with you and you say, oh, here's my email address. And then you send a Calendly link or you send any of those things out and you tell the person, pick a time. Now, even in the West, that's in Western Europe and in North America, people are beginning to get that this is kind of condescending and presumptuous, especially when you're given the different cultural context and power dynamics that we have. In Nigeria, there's this idea of now you define something. So if you're the one who's looking for something, why would you be sending someone a link and say, pick out what time is available and things like that? It's rather presumptuous and off-putting in the Nigerian context. And so this whole calendar link thing, it's really impersonal, and yes, it might work for people in different cultural contexts, but I really don't think it's something that we Nigerians should be doing. So your bride and your groom reach out, and then you say, here's the link, pick what time suits you. It's fancy, and it's tech, and it shows that you're on the cutting edge, but is it really effective? Now, there are much more effective ways and alternative ways that we can go about doing this, and one of them is the alternative close. And the alternative close allows you to allows you to pick a date right here, right now. Because I'm on the phone with you, I'll say, okay, good. It looks like it will be productive for us to have a meeting. I am free next week on Monday or Tuesday, which works for you. The person will say, oh, Tuesday doesn't really work. How about Friday? And you can say, okay, yes, Friday works, but I'm available Friday only at 8 o'clock and then later on at 4. And then the person will say 4 p.m. And then you say, okay, thank you very much. I'll note that down and I'll also send you a reminder. See you at Friday for 4 p.m. That is quick. It's efficient. We've got that down because we're here, and it doesn't rely on the other person having to leave this conversation, go to Calendly or go to the email using your the Gmail link to try and select another time. We have agreed to a time right here and now, and we've secured the commitment. So this is a much more effective way of securing the meeting, at least in the Nigerian context for now. Eventually, we might all get bougie and, real highfalutin and tech savvy. And maybe this whole thing of send me the calendar link, maybe eventually that will work. But until we get to that level, let's just keep it real simple. An alternative close here works very fine. I'm available at A or at B, which works for you. Okay, good. We're at B. So on B, I am going to be available at this time or that time, which works for you this time. Okay, thank you very much. See you at the meeting. So, in summary, this whole rant today is just for we creatives to realize that our time is valuable. Meetings take time. So get on the phone and decide whether the meeting is even worth taking at all in the first place, because your time is valuable. And if you're going to set up the meeting, don't do the calendar link thing, please. We are not there yet as Nigerians, in the Nigerian business context, we are not there yet. And even in the West, there are already people who are writing about it and talking about it, saying that this whole thing is presumptuous, that you don't just get off the phone and then say, here's the link, pick what you like. So we're not there yet. And anyway, that's the end of my ranting, so we're at the end of the 10-minute mark. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional, Tavishima George Ayede. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording. And please remember that your time is important, and that should be your guiding light. You should be looking for ways to save your time as much as possible. And the phone is a very useful tool for doing that. So you guys have a wonderful weekend.